Hello, everybody.
You caught me just as I was fluffing my hair.
I think we begin every stream with you fluffing your hair. Hello, everybody. Welcome to.
God,
What just happened?
I don't know.
Jesus. Sometimes Eleanor's a little high strung.
Your chair is high strung. Jesus Christ on a cracker. Okay. Whew.
For those of you listening to the podcast, Eleanor
chair just attacked me.
fell a quarter of an inch, and it was like she was attacked by a lion.
Don't want me to be taller than you.
Welcome, everybody, to Common Censored. Thanks for being here. I am going to be here for the first 40 minutes, and then Eleanor is going to take it home because I got to run.
And I'm just going to read from Beyond Good and Evil.
It's nothing but a read fest starting.
Nothing but Nietzsche. Oh my God, that's a great name for a podcast.
Nothing but Nietzsche is a good name for a podcast.
Sorry. Decaf
takes down the notes. Decaf is excellent. All right. So, and this has to do with our first topic, which is Bill Gates has put out a memo saying everybody stop worrying about climate crisis, which is hilarious. And we're going to get to the details of that in just a second. But as kind of part of that, as a fun little part of that, I thought I'd show some of the destruction of Hurricane Melissa, is it? That is the strongest hurricane ever to make landfall in the Atlantic, on the Atlantic coast. Ever. This is the strongest hurricane ever. And it's like the day before Bill Gates puts out a memo saying, everybody forget about climate change. It's really unbelievable. You have this type of destruction. And, did I say Melissa? Hurricane Melissa, which made landfall in Jamaica and Cuba this week. It's one of the most catastrophic storms, and it's showing a pattern in a warming world. Those with the most intense winds and soaking rains were once rare, but they're becoming more and more common because of climate change, and similarities are emerging. Melissa hit Jamaica at Category 5. It churned over especially warm waters, as did other hurricanes over the past decade. This allowed it to strengthen at a blistering pace, becoming the most powerful in this year's Atlantic season and tying the record for all time. Then the storm slowed to a crawl, giving it more time to dump rain on Jamaica, a hallmark of hurricanes during climate change. Melissa's timing, too, is notable. It formed late in the season. Hurricane activity has typically been thought to be peak in early September. However, since the ocean is heating up, that is changing. Taken together, this behavior makes Melissa a kind of poster child for the new normal of hurricanes. These storms aren't the same storms as a couple decades ago. In just 18 hours, it exploded from a tropical storm into a Category 4 before reaching Category 5. Climate change is increasing the risk of rapid intensification. Okay, so all of that's going on, all this massive destruction. Obviously, the poor are devastated first and worst. Yes, I think we showed video a week or two ago of the Outer Banks of North Carolina, these houses collapsing into the water. However, those are generally like timeshare houses. Those are people that can afford to go to other houses. They're horrifying to watch it collapse. But that is different than what you're seeing here in Jamaica, where these people don't have the ability to just run away. They don't have the ability to go to Cancun like Ted Cruz did when the power went out in Texas. So this is another common factor of climate crisis, is the poor and those with the least among us are going to be hit first and worst.
Well, and also those who had the least to do with contributing to climate chaos are hit the hardest. It's these island nations that is where we send our trash, literally. Not just the worst of our human beings. I mean, literally send our trash to these island nations.
I wish we had an island we sent our trash humans to. Just Donald Trump and Bill Gates and Elon Musk.
I mean, they go vacationing in the Caribbean.
I think Epstein's Island is what you mean.
Yeah. But so these island nations are the ones who bear the brunt of climate chaos that they had nothing really to do statistically with creating. Also, it's worth mentioning that on August 6th, Jamaica celebrated its independence from the UK. Wouldn't it be nice if the UK paid for all of this? Like, not just paid
they
for
said they're doing that, right?
yeah,
Any
not
day
just paid for the damage caused by this, but I don't know, like reparations for the fact that Jamaica is still a remarkably poor island, like despite the fact that it has won its independence. This also speaks to the fact that post-colonial is not actually a lived reality. It's just like a nice concept that we talk about.
In fact, it's normally the opposite, where the island or nation that gets their freedom pays the powerful countries for the honor of being free.
Yeah.
Okay, so
would you like to share the?
Oh yeah, I actually just pulled that up. Here is.
There are a couple of different ones. So this I got this from the folks at Mutual Aid Disaster Relief. You can also donate directly to Mutual Aid Disaster Relief, but this is one of the places on the ground that is making sure that people have their basic needs met. If you're listening to the podcast,
sorry.
Thank you. It's Hurricane Melissa Disaster Relief. You can donate via PayPal. The email is sourcefarm@yahoo.com. So
SOURCE farm@yahoo.com.
Yeah. I will also post this on my socials so that you can see it there.
Oh, and when you do that, you have to put in a note that says hurricane relief, it looks like. So, yeah, that's one good place to donate. But, and I forgot to say at the beginning of the show, please, everybody, click thumbs up, click share, leave a comment, and it helps. It does help the show, even though we are horribly suppressed. We really appreciate all that. Super chats are widely respected amongst the two of us. So, but
two of us.
So, Bill Gates and the New York Times has been giving this mostly positive coverage, but
the hurricane?
No, Bill Gates. Oh. Bill Gates puts out a memo saying, and he has been one of the biggest, most well-known and largest amount of media coverage people out there talking about climate crisis over the past many years. Now, there's a variety of reasons he could be doing this other than giving a shit about humanity. It can be useful. He has invested in green energy. It can be useful in that way. It can be useful for brand laundering. Bill Gates has been on a large-scale brand laundering effort for fucking 30 years. If you actually look at what went down, his name became mud in like the late 90s when the dot-com bubble burst. He was brought in front of Congress due to his monopoly with Microsoft. And he was the richest guy in the world at the time. So he was kind of held up as, look, richest guy in the world, monopolizing things, they're able to charge you more and thereby enriching himself. He was the fucking fat cat. That's what he was being held up as, Mr. Richest Man, fat cat. And he realized, I need to brand launder. I need to make people think I am the champion of the people. So he then did a multitude of things, but one of them was he gives massive donations through his foundation and other ways, to just about every mainstream media outlet you can imagine. Guardian, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, like they all, maybe not Fox News, but they all, PBS, I know is one of them, get a lot of money from him. And so they all are generally champions of Bill Gates. A lot of brand laundering. Anyway, he, however, now has done a 180. This is the New York Times covering it. And he says, although climate change, this is the memo he put out, although climate change will have serious consequences, particularly for people in the poorest countries, it will not lead to humanity's demise. People will be able to live and thrive in most places on Earth for the foreseeable future. Now, that sentence is amazing because it literally says, this is going to be catastrophic for the poor countries. But, most of the people I interact with will be fine. We'll get through it. I mean, it is just a classic, like, I'm rich as fuck. It's not going to impact me or in fact, a lot of Americans are not going to be as impacted by it. But the poor in every country are going to be most impacted initially. Mr. Gates was setting up a false dichotomy, the article says, quote, usually propagated by climate skeptics, that pits efforts to tackle climate change against foreign aid for the poor. So this memo said, let's stop worrying much about climate change. And he put out a whole book on climate change several years ago. He said, let's stop worrying as much about climate change and let's instead help the poor in many countries. As if those are mutually exclusive, as if you can't do both.
Yeah.
Like the memo is such garbage. Then he says, let's see, in the memo, Mr. Gates argued that the world should invest in efforts to lower the cost of clean energy and find ways to make manufacturing, agriculture, and transportation less polluting.
Why bother if climate change is not important?
Yeah. But the memo also sought to redirect efforts away from the campaign to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and instead focus on other things to improve human lives and reduce suffering. Something you need to...
Was he clear on what these things would be that reduce suffering besides him throwing himself off of a tall bridge?
I didn't read all of the memo, so I don't know the things he listed. But I was going to say something important to know about Bill Gates is he is the largest private owner of farmland in the United States now. Many people say he's the largest owner of farmland. That's not true. There are industrial corporations that own more, but he's the largest private owner of farmland in the United States. Owns a crazy amount, owns more farmland than the state of Delaware is large, and so what does farmland produce? A lot of emissions. And so it's possible this is a sheer investment thing. He's like, I need to get people to shift away from giving a fuck about emissions. It's really damaging to my businesses to keep worrying about this. The other thing that has greatly increased the amount of emissions that are being dumped into our world is the amount of energy we're using. What is using crazy amounts of energy fast is AI. What is Bill Gates' bread and butter? It's AI, it's the metaverse. So the more energy they use, the more they are the cause of a lot of these emissions. And it's quite possible he just sees this as a pure monetary decision, pure financial decision. I need to get people to stop caring so much about emissions. Many scientists believe that the planet's rapid warming could bring about a series of irreversible tipping points that could have cascading impacts. Yeah, so while he says it's not as big a deal, if you actually read up on the science, we have crossed 7 of the 9 planetary boundaries that could create basically a spiral out of control that humans have no impact on. And he should know that if he gives a fuck at all. And
he does know that.
Yeah, these scenarios include changes to ocean currents, the disappearance of ice sheets, and the mass death of coral reefs. There are points. This is a quote from him in 2021. There are points at which when that's a weird way to phrase that, the corals die off, they never come back. This is again Bill Gates 2021. This is acidifying the ocean, and all the aqua ecosystems die off as the acid level goes up. As forests dry out, they are subject to both fires and infestations that kill all the trees. So you get a lot less trees. As the sea level goes up, the beaches go away. That's him. But he's changed his tune. Now, stop worrying about it so much.
I mean, we should stop worrying about what Bill Gates has to say.
Yes, that too. Thank you, duly noted, for supporting the show. Counterpunch also analyzed his garbage memo and said a few things. He said Gates is obviously trying to change the subject about the upcoming COP summit, where it has been announced. And thank you for Circle Home for supporting the show. Really appreciate it. The next COP is coming up, and at that, there's a UN report that a lot of people are talking about, saying that basically almost 0 countries have stuck to any of their promises. And in fact, most countries aren't even bothering to give like promises or goals for the next COP summit. Like as you and I have been saying since the day the Paris Accords were signed, they were meaningless because they were just, I mean, big banks were cheersing to it because they were just empty promises without any kind of teeth.
Yeah.
And so there's a UN report coming out saying that most countries fail to submit new climate pledges. Only 64 countries have even submitted new plans. That's not the number that have stuck to their plans. The number that has stuck to the plans, I think, is like 2 maybe. And so they counterpunch does a pretty good job of tearing apart this memo by Bill Gates. I did see some people, actually, I saw some right-wingers on like, X, the right-wing haven, saying, look, even Bill Gates is starting to get it, that climate change isn't a big deal. And it's like, look, I never thought you should go by what Bill Gates is saying. I never thought you should go by what any of the billionaires or even any one person is saying. You look at the science, and the truth is 99.9% of peer-reviewed scientific articles say the same fucking thing. That there's man-made climate change, that if we continue on this path, it's catastrophic. This is 99.9%. So yeah, follow the money. That 0.1% that disagrees is being paid heavily by big oil and others.
I recently saw a post that said we were never meant to have this much access to this much stupid commentary. Well, because think about it.
True.
People now believe, like a lot of people believe, that climate change isn't real, that the earth is flat.
That all vaccines do nothing.
Or make you, I don't know, grow an extra head out of your armpit or whatever. But
that did happen to me, but I think that was unrelated.
I think that was the Cinnamon Toast Crunch. So you heard it here first, guys. So there's this issue of like the fact that now the world is just flooded with information, and a lot of it is really fucking dumb. And this is also why critical media literacy is so important, why it's so important to be able to, like Lee said, well, go to the source. What do the experts say? You'll hear this a lot of times in Congress. Well, I'm not an expert. Okay, shit stick. Then talk to the experts. No one's asking you to be an expert in everything. That's not actually what the job of a politician is. One might argue that the job of a politician is to be a dumb fuck, but no one's asking you to be an expert.
That's not the job, it's just a perk.
To the experts, right? It's kind of like if your roof is leaking, do you talk to a nutritionist? No, you talk to a roofer who can help you with your roof. It's like, for some reason, this is really simple for shit that doesn't matter that much. But when it comes to our ability to actually survive on the planet, it's like, all of a sudden, I can't figure out who the experts are. And so the access to dumb fucking information is at a peak that I don't think we as humans have had access to at this level in our entire history.
No,
and it's doing shit to our brains that is really frightening, and we're seeing what that looks like in real time. So that's kind of exciting.
Let's go through one quick example of how this kind of dumb shittery that you have so well elucidated just fosters and grows and spreads so quickly. You have, and I broke it apart on Unredacted tonight, but I'll give the quick version. Joe Rogan, and I've heard some reports that other indie, YouTubers podcasters have pointed to this same article. And they point to this article. Joe Rogan did it in front of Bernie Sanders. He's also apparently mentioned this article 6 other times on his show, Joe Rogan, which gets millions of people, listening to it. Points to this Washington Post article. And he says, look, even the Washington Post says that we're in a cooling period. And he shows the chart. And the chart shows, yeah, sure enough, if you go over millions of years, you see that we're actually lower on the temperature scale.
Compared to when there were volcanoes erupting constantly all over the fucking globe.
Yes, that is one thing. But yes, scientists have known we are actually in an ice age because there's ice on the planet Earth. This is part of an ice age. We are at a downtrend in glaciation or whatever the term is. So you don't have like glaciers covering North America, but we are still in an ice age. It's not as bad as it was 10,000, 20,000 years ago.
Or even like the mini ice age that happened in the there was a mini ice age in like the 1500s, I think.
Was that a volcano blast cause that? Anyway, yes. So we are not at the hottest the planet has ever been. But what the article says, if you actually read the rest of it, is that mass extinctions right now is the 6th great mass extinction, right? We've seen 5 others. One of them, the most famous one, is the dinosaurs and 90% of all life on Earth after the asteroid struck Earth. But that's just one example. There's been 5 others. We're in number 6 right now, if trends continue. But what the article says is that it has to do with amount of change quickly, temperature change quickly. And they highlight on that chart where you've seen great temperature change in the Earth quickly. And those times have caused mass extinction because animal life doesn't have time to adjust. There is no time for evolutionary shifts, for us to grow evolutionarily. That takes hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years. So you can't adapt. You just die. And most things will die in extreme quick temperature change. And by quick, I don't mean like a decade, which we are doing that. But quick in Earth's terms is 10,000 years change. 5,000, 100,000 is even pretty quick. That's what quick temperature change is. We're now in the quickest temperature change. I mean, it's changed 1.5 degrees in my life. Like, we are in the quickest temperature change outside of the asteroid and the dinosaurs probably ever.
Yeah, nobody born after 1980 has ever experienced a cooler than normal year. Yeah. That's how fast.
Yeah. And anyway, so they point to this article that says the opposite of what they think it does. And they go, look, even the Washington Post admits the planet's cooling. And that's not at all what the article says.
Reading comprehension is super important, y'all.
Or just read it. Just read the article.
But
I think they saw the title.
Right? Like, you can read something and not comprehend it, which is, I think, what like a lot of people do. So reading comprehension with critical media literacy is so important. Yeah, I had something else here. I don't remember what it was. Carry on.
Well, I'll wrap this topic up in a second. And so why would Bill Gates have a sudden 180 on this? Because he is a sociopath. I mean, if you look at his track record over his whole history, he's always been willing to do whatever will enrich him more, will win the game. I don't know whether he cares more about power, money, or just quote unquote victory. I don't know. But you don't buy up. You don't become the number 1 owner of farmland when you're already the 3rd richest guy on the planet, unless you are endlessly striving to just own everything and win everything. And so that's what he's doing. So yeah, for a long time, it was a really good brand laundering tactic for him to care about climate change, to act like he cared about humanity. And now maybe the emissions it's problematic for him because they think it's going to stop emissions on, AI, various AI industries and stuff like that. I don't know, but it doesn't really matter. The science is the science. Thank you, duly noted. You guys are killing it with the super chats today. Really appreciate it. Duly noted says, wouldn't we be better off fighting for clean water, earth, and sky? Or does big oil have a monopoly on all that too? Well, not just big oil, but there's literally big water. I mean, that owns the water. But I think we should be fighting for all those things. Absolutely. I think we should go. What do you think of the idea that water should have rights and land should have rights?
I have a lot of thoughts on this. Maybe we should take this another time, because the problem is when you put something in a rights-based framework in a system where we think we have rights that we don't actually have, that those things end up having rights that not having rights that they should have. Like, we think we have rights to free speech and rights to free press and rights to assembly and basic human rights, like not having to starve in the richest country in the world. We don't have those rights. So if you put something in a rights-based framework in a system where they can tell you you have those rights legally and then not give them to you, what does that say for the water and the animals and the ecosystems? It looks nice on paper.
So redefine rights is what you're saying.
I'm saying burn the whole system down because this shit's fucked. And like no amount of legislative, this lake has human rights is going to help that lake.
This is the problem with hanging out with a deep philosopher is every time you're like, what do you think of protecting the rivers? And you're like, so when you say river, the problem is rivers could be this cup of water.
Don't make me sound like I'm just some full of shit.
I don't think you're full of shit. It was a joke.
It's an actual.
I'm kidding.
You're right. Because people think often that they're thinking outside the box when they're like, oh, what if we gave nature rights? And that's cool until you look deeper. And you realize, we don't have those rights that we're suggesting we give. Oh, how nice of us to give nature rights. It also perpetuates this power dynamic where we're up here. You've been talking for like 17 minutes. Give me a minute. Where it perpetuates this hierarchy where we think we're at the top and we're so nice. We're giving nature these rights, but that's not actually how the ecosystems work. Just look at how climate change is decimating our ability to not just thrive, but survive. So the whole kind of argument, which I agree is coming from a good place, is really kind of an argument of fallacies because the whole thing that it's supposedly based on is a fallacy because we don't actually have rights and we're actually not above nature. So
agreed. All I was going to say is this is similar to something we've said many times, which is that, I mean, where rights come from, the way we talk about them, or I don't mean you and me, but most people talk about them is legally. And who was this justice system built to defend and protect? And who was it built by? It was built by the wealthiest white people in the country. And what does it defend and protect? The wealthiest white people in the country. So yeah, you get the basis of rights is in a fucked up system.
And on that note, somebody was mentioning the bullshittery of philanthropy, which I also, which is tied into this because philanthropy or charity is basically just a release valve for the largest bloodsuckers in our society to make themselves look good and also then to perpetuate their bloodsucking, their hogging of resources, and then the perpetuation of the oppressed, because a system like this needs the oppressed and philanthropy needs the oppressed to give something to, right? Who am I going to write my check to if there's no unhoused and there's no, single moms who need help? What am I going to do? How am I going to explain my existence as somebody with 14 houses if I don't have this release valve of philanthropy? So everybody gets to, circle jerk Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates when they give what's the equivalent of a fucking penny of their of their worth to something that then kind of circles back to needing them and needing their philanthropy. Whereas mutual aid, which I mentioned with the mutual aid disaster relief, mutual aid is based on solidarity rather than charity. And solidarity is the idea that I help you not out of some fucking, screwed up power dynamic where I think I'm better than you or out of pity. I help you because I recognize that I too need help. And there's this mutualism here. It is the community helping itself, that we recognize that we cannot survive this fucked up system unless we help each other. And so it's this kind of horizontal way of addressing crises and catastrophes, as opposed to, oh my gosh, you poor, fill in the blank. Let me help you because I'm so benevolent and so wonderful. And you run along now, you unhoused little cretin. And, we'll see you next time. I have $20 to throw in your direction. Like, that shit is fucked. And every time you see somebody like Bill Gates or Bezos or anybody else being like, I gave $1 billion to this, whatever bullshit charity I just made up, the Human Fund, recognize that it is bullshit and it always comes back to enriching them. Thanks for coming.
I'd love to see one of them launder brand wash by donating $1 billion to mutual aid.
Dude,
that'd be fascinating. That'd be interesting. Okay, since I only have like 10 minutes left, let's get to. No, it's fine. You can dominate the whole thing. It's let's. I have not I'm just kidding. It was
not been done. You talked for like the first
It was a
minutes.
Joke. You're not liking my jokes today. That's a real pity. You're my only audience. You're my only live audience. I need someone to laugh.
You got the cat. You could. I think you should. I think you should workshop them a bit.
Okay. Let's jump to it because I did want to get to this topic. I didn't want to run out of time for it. How Trump wants to increase HIV/AIDS by 50% by 2030.
Yeah.
Which is pretty incredible. Like you gotta love these folks, don't you?
So basically, this is a report by Johns Hopkins that finds that ending the federally funded Ryan White HIV/AIDS program would increase new HIV infections 49% by 2030 in 31 cities. The Ryan White program is named for a boy who acquired HIV from a blood transfusion when he was 13 and then died not long after. I think he died when he was like 18 or something.
Yeah, he got the transfusion at 13. Yeah.
And so this is the Ryan White Fund is about not just supporting people who have AIDS, but getting rid of the stigma, because he wasn't allowed to like go to school when they found out that he had it, because they were like, oh God, everyone's going to get AIDS because we're breathing the same air. Bullshit like that. I'm sure you've seen the film Philadelphia. Anyway, so this program is on the chop block because why wouldn't it be? And I mean, it's just staggering to think of these numbers because for instance, the Ryan White program provided medical care in 2023, which resulted in a record-breaking 90.6% HIV suppression rate among those it served. That's huge. That means that people who have HIV can actually like go live their lives because they have support from this program. This program being slashed would not just mean that people who have this, who have HIV and AIDS, would be left basically to die. But it also means that people would then become infected. There would be new infections, 49% increase. That is, I mean, I don't like if people watching this were alive, when HIV first started ravaging the United States in like the 80s, this is what we're looking at if we get rid of programs like this. This is horrific. And it's an example of one of the many things that's on the chop block with regards to healthcare, which we've talked about on the show.
And as we've said many times, Trump and his goons are basically cutting anything that is not stuff that they're basically not sending the funds out to anything that actually helps human beings. They continue to send all the funding out to all of their fascist forces. The funding goes out to the military. I mean, hell, I think Larry Ellison was offering to pay some of the military for their time during the shutdown. But the funding even prior to the shutdown, the funding was getting to ICE. The funding was getting to DHS. The funding gets to all these fascist fucking stormtroopers. But even before the shutdown, Trump was withholding the funds that go to things like this, to things like food stamps. Trump is just trying to make sure that none of the funding gets to things that actually help human beings, and instead just gets to the fascist goons that enforce his dystopia. So this is yet another aspect of that, and another one we're about to get to. I have to go in a few minutes, but another one we're about to get to is food stamps. Do you want to jump to that one?
Sure. Oh, where am I here? Yes. So as you pointed out, they're trying to make sure that the military, that ICE, that all of our, our brave Gestapo have money during the government shutdown. But starting basically tomorrow, nearly 42 million people could lose access to food aid. There's all this back and forth sandbox tiffs about whose fault it is.
And a huge percentage of that is children. The 42 million that will
lose. I was like, what? No, what?
You thought children have been fighting endlessly.
It's their fault that the government shut down. Let's just not forget that.
MSNBC okay? Just keeps having panels of 5-year-olds screaming at each other over the food stamps.
Okay. So, where was this? Okay. In a memo, the USDA said that it would not be tapping into contingency funds to keep SNAP benefits afloat, because the memo claims that these billions of dollars in additional funds are not legally available. Okay.
As if they care about legality.
Our government breaks the law every fucking day, like several times before you've even taken your morning shit. So let's not pretend that legally available is somehow a barrier to doing anything. You know what else is not technically legal? Kidnapping people and putting them in concentration camps.
How about blowing up fishermen?
or children, or any of these things are not legal. But so it's like, it's so amazing to me. And this is like the trickle down of the legality, right? If you run a stop sign, if you fudge your taxes, even like by accident, you are looking at, the huge fines, potential jail time. But if they let 42 million people starve because they don't feel like putting their hands in a different coffer, that's fine. That's not criminal. Nobody's going to go to jail because they're letting children starve. And I think that there's also an important link to look at here, because our government has been well aware of the fact that human beings of all ages are starving in Gaza, are starving in Sudan. The UN estimates that 24 million people are starving in Sudan. Our government does not give a shit. So why would they give a shit about people starving here at home? You have to recognize that imperialism is always going to come home. It's a home game too. It's not just something we play away. It's why you shouldn't. It's why cops have domestic abuse rates higher than the average. Why? Because you can't brutalize people at work and come home and be like, honey, I love you. Let's be gentle together. That's not how that works. So it's very important to recognize the connections here and recognize that they don't give a shit about the starving kids in Sudan or Gaza. They don't care about your starving children here at home. And this is and I think a lot of people were shocked to know, oh, wait, you have a contingency fund that you could fucking dip into and you're not going to?
Well, and the way they're getting creative to find ways to make sure that our trained killers are still getting paid. They're like, hey, Allison could chip in a few billion or something. Like they're finding ways, whereas they're not finding ways to make sure that children continue to get the food that they need in a capitalist structure that has shat out, eaten up and shat out so many people, destroyed lives, and made it so that they can't even afford food in one of the richest countries in the world. It's fucking disgusting. And that's what this administration is, but it's what all U.S. administrations are in one way or another. I do have to run here in a second, but before I do, I just wanted to make a couple of quick announcements. And Eleanor's going to take the show home for everybody. But a couple of quick things. I'm performing live in New York City, December 12th. If you're in New York, it's my first stand-up performance in New York in years. And it's like $10 or something to go. Look up tinyurl. Eleanor's going to dance. Look up tinyurl.com/Lee Cobra Club. It's at the Cobra Club in Brooklyn /Lee Cobra Club. Another thing, although I was going to announce it, I guess I'll still announce it. Rad Indie Media was under a massive hacking attack. It continues to be under attack. However, the attack has not been working as much. It was down earlier today, but it's back up. So radindiemedia.com is back up and should be working very well. And it has a new look. And it has a lot more stories than it used to. It used to only have a few per day, and now it's got dozens. And there's these tabs on the side saying read, watch, or listen, so you can pick which one you want. You want to look at things that you read or things that you watch. And I hope everybody, there's the watch tab. I hope everybody, oh, wow, it's already got our current live stream on there. Look at that. I hope
that feels very meta.
I hope everybody will check it out, and radindiemedia.com, completely free to use. And I will be back with you Monday. If you haven't seen the new Unredacted Tonight, just aired last night on Trump's war on Venezuela, plus his love of Argentina, plus a little something about Mossad. Check out Unredacted.
Something in there for everyone.
There is, including Mossad. Check out Unredacted Tonight. You can go to leecamp.com/unredacted. All right, I'm gonna
How are
hand
you
it off.
getting out of here?
I'm gonna hand it off to Ellen.
Oh.
Now I will actually do the scoot that you always want to do.
Everybody's gonna scooch. This is so exciting.
It's a little okay. Well, see, I should just go backwards in our giant studio here. That's behind
Right.
me.
Why don't you just get up
Why-
and walk
Why
out,
don't I
Lee?
just walk out that way?
Okay. I don't know where my other slipper is. There it is. Okay. Bye, Lee. Hey, everybody. Okay. Now I'm going to read to you. I'm kidding. I'm not going to read to you. Okay. So I want to get to a couple of things here. Let's see. What does he have up here that I have not covered? So I wanted to get to Israel or occupied Palestine as well. And let's see here. Where's my, hold on, give me a second. Takes me a while. Like, it's like getting back on a motorcycle when you haven't ridden for a while. You're like, okay, there's the clutch. So Mondo Weiss does great reporting about the situation in occupied Palestine. I definitely recommend that folks check them out when you have a minute. Israel's repeated ceasefire violations are a part of its strategy to keep waging war on Gaza. And we've seen this, and Mondo Weiss has reported on this quite a bit, to point out that basically Israel does this in order to get people to stop yelling at them. So, for instance, when the forced famine, when the starvation was at its most intense, they let in like a little bit of food so they could tell everybody, we let in some food. Now shut up and let us continue our genocide without bothering us. So this kind of push-pull to kind of find that sweet spot where world leaders go about their day and stop paying attention. This is very classic Israel. And as pointed out, that this past week, for folks listening on the podcast, we're recording this on Halloween. This past week, Tuesday into Wednesday, Israel started, bombing Gaza again and killed more than 100 people in one night. Many of them, at least almost half of them, just children. And basically, the argument was Hamas broke the ceasefire agreement. And of course, Hamas says that they didn't. And this is really less about like the who do you believe and more just looking at the track record of Israel. Israel has broken the ceasefire agreement. Just this most recent one, it's violated that agreement at least like 100 times. I think even some counts are up to like 200 times since October 11th, the first full day of the ceasefire. It's broken every ceasefire before then. Remember the ceasefire back in, January of this year, that then it just decided to break for no apparent reason. So there's always an excuse, right? And this goes back to something that I've mentioned several times before, which is a quote by Koenig Kirkonian, who is an Armenian human rights lawyer, who said in an interview that I did with him, genociders don't stop. Those with genocidal intent don't stop. They have to be stopped, right? So this idea that at some point Netanyahu or Israel, because I also don't want people to, to feed into the idea that if we just got rid of Netanyahu, it'd be great. The idea that Israel would somehow just one day wake up and be like, we're good. This is enough, right? Like, multiple Hiroshimas in a place that's like 12 miles long, we're good. That's not going to happen. So I think that it's really important to recognize that and recognize that the ceasefire agreements were never anything that Israel felt strongly about, that they believed in, that they felt that they needed to stick to. They look at it basically the way that most countries look at climate agreements, right? I'll just wipe my ass with this. That's great. And Mondo Weiss points out that these strikes, the strikes from this past week, are part of an emerging pattern in which Israel continues to manufacture pretexts to launch a flurry of strikes across the Strip. And they also point out that Mondo Weiss reviewed the records and found that the people killed in airstrikes since this ceasefire went into effect, that Israel is targeting resistance fighters that had evaded detection during the war under the pretext of retaliation. I don't know how you can retaliate for a genocide that, okay. Always the victim, right? So, but of course, in classic fashion, they're not going after people that are actually militants. They're killing civilians. And so the idea that this is somehow the targeting of, you know, only Hamas fighters, they're still going with that with that line, right? And that this is a line that's picked up by corporate media, right? Oh, the Hamas militants, the Hamas militants, the Hamas militants. And you always hear this, right? Well, Israel was just going after Hamas militants and there just happened to be some children around. And I always come back to this analogy. Let's say that there is a school shooter, which if you're watching this in the US or listening to it in the US, you don't have to think too hard to imagine that. Let's say that there's a school shooter and, you know, the people in charge are all sitting around and deciding what to do about it, right? And they're like, let's just bomb the school. And at that point, don't you think most people would be like, I'm sorry, what the fuck? You want to do what now? And they're like, well, there's a school shooter. So this is really the best way to ensure that we get that school shooter. That's fucking insane. And yet this is the same argument that Israel uses to say that, well, the Hamas militants are under the hospital, so we had to bomb the hospital, as if that would be an appropriate response. Even if that were true, and it's not. So, like, even if that were true, if that were factually accurate, that you had these Hamas militants under the hospital, that still wouldn't be an okay response. And then, of course, the next layer beneath that is to really look at like why Hamas exists and why any kind of militants exist in a place like Gaza, and your whole house of cards just falls apart, right? Anyway, so I think it's important that we continue to talk about the situation in Gaza because, you know, after it killed more than 100 people Tuesday night going into Wednesday morning, of course, Israel goes, well, the ceasefire is back. But it's not a ceasefire, right? This is not a word that we should use. It is a genocide pause, if you even consider it that, because people on the ground are still starving. People on the ground are still unable to access basic shelter, basic healthcare items that they need, because guess what? When you bomb the shit out of people for more than 2 years and they don't have adequate hospital supplies to begin with, and now they have even less, you know, things like infections are rampant. You know, a friend of mine is a doctor in central Gaza, and he talks about using people's clothing as tourniquets. That's obviously not sterile, right? So, you know, using Tylenol for amputations. It's like the extreme suffering, even when bombs are quiet, is at a level that is difficult to even fathom. So I think it's important that we not lose sight of that, and we understand that this is an ongoing genocide, even if the bombs are silent. And I wanted to just connect this as well to what we're seeing right now with people here in the United States, you know, not having access to basic things like food. So the Palestinian Youth Movement pointed this out in a recent post that, you know, while we're looking at people not getting any funds for food, Israel still gets billions of dollars, right? That the US government shutdown is not pausing the money being funneled to Israel. Now, think about that for a second, right? Think about that for a second. That the idea that your own people should not get food, but a country thousands of miles away should get bombs, that is a major plank of the platform of the United States, and has been since its founding. Any nation founded on genocide and slavery cannot reform its core mission, right? And so this has always been who the US is. I really don't want to see people out there talking about how un-American this shit is. This is as American as it gets, okay? And I think it's important that we recognize that. So again, we are nearing a month into the shutdown, right? And we're also getting into colder temperatures across the country, and more people are facing the risk of being unhoused as well as being hungry, and even if they're housed, having a difficulty paying for things like heating. And as we already covered, you know, these folks are not getting paid. They're not going to dip into that contingency fund, and there's really no suggestion right now that I've seen that the government shutdown is going to end. Again, there's like the sandbox tiff back and forth about me, like, you did this and you said this and you can't come to my birthday party. So the argument that there's not sufficient funds for SNAP is bullshit, not just because of the existence of this contingency fund, but of course also because you're giving billions of dollars to a fucking genocidal regime. You could just not do that, right? These are options. You don't have to fund a genocide, okay? But again, this is central to the core mission statement of the United States, right? It has always been at the core of the United States. So, as pointed out by the Palestinian Youth Movement, at the beginning of October, just a week into the current shutdown, the Trump administration announced its plans to deploy troops in Gaza because, you know, why not? And this is not new, by the way. There have been U.S. troops in Gaza before this. Israel's flagrant violations of the ceasefire could also not have been conducted without the unimpeded shipment of weapons from the U.S. to Israel, which is ongoing despite the federal government shutdown. The funds being doled out to fly 200 U.S. troops to Palestine and ship billions of dollars in weapons to Israel intended to facilitate further massacres in Gaza could easily be redirected to prevent the U.S.'s own citizens from going hungry. Yes, exactly. But as they point out, the maintenance and expansion of the empire will always come first. Amen. And again, this is central to the core mission and existence of the United States as a genocidal regime. So again, I wanted to make that part clear. I also, before I end here, I wanted to talk about Sudan because that doesn't get enough attention. I know I mentioned it kind of in passing earlier, but I think it's important to note that. So what happened this past week is, again, it's not about it being new because people have been fleeing Sudan and, you know, trying to get to Europe. This is also a big cause of what we've seen in terms of boats being boats capsizing in the Mediterranean, for instance, or being turned away from ports in Europe. People have been fleeing the conflict in Sudan for the past 2 years at least. So what happened this past week, though, is a devastation that you could actually see from space. Like, I think it was a Harvard lab that showed shots taken from satellite imagery that shows bloodstains in Al Fasher, Sudan, from space. Now there's a lot there's a lot to get into here, and I recommend that folks check out this information. But basically, the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, is funding this genocide via the RSF, the so-called Rapid Support Forces, and they finally broke through a city called El Fasher and killed more than 2,000 people. Many more thousand were wounded, and some 20,000 were displaced. There's horrific imagery and videos that have come out of there. Again, not least of all, the bloodstains you can see from space. I don't know if folks understand how fucked that is, and how fucked. I'm coming back to critical media literacy here. How fucked it is that this is not front page news on the New York Times. This is not at the top story of CNN and bloodstains you can see from space. 2,000 people killed. You've got horrific stories of like war crimes sounds too delicate, but the actions done by the RSF, which are again backed by the UAE, which is a good friend to the United States, a good friend to Israel. So these are connected. You know, Dubai is a sparkling city of gold and diamonds. This is where that comes from. It's all blood money. I guess you could argue that all money is blood money, but so and this is again, it's not new because not just in Sudan, but in El Fasher, as a group pointed out. Sudan Doctors Network pointed out that the massacres the world is witnessing today are an extension of what occurred in El Fasher more than a year and a half ago, when over 14,000 civilians were killed through bombing, starvation, and extrajudicial executions. So this has been going on for a while. And a lot of people are just now hearing about it. A lot of people are still not hearing about it because, as I pointed out, corporate media doesn't give a flying fuck about Africa unless we're talking about these, the minerals that we can mine from there, which is another thing. This past week was Congo Week, and I did an interview with Maurice Carney, who's the co-founder of Friends of Congo, and we talked, and you can find that at Project Censored over at projectcensored.org or wherever you listen to podcasts. And he talked about the issue that, a lot of people talk about Africa only to talk about, oh, the NBA is starting a team over there. Oh my gosh, that's where we get the great minerals to make our computers and smartphones. And oh my gosh, they're also mining lithium, which is so great because we need that. And if you don't approve of that, then you must hate green energy. It's a lot of greenwashing. There's also sports washing involved, with the NBA and shit. So, but nobody talks about the fact that Congo is being, invaded by M20 by the it's M23. These Rwandan, like the Rwandan forces that are backed by Rwanda's president and President Kagame, and nobody talks about that. Right? Nobody talks about what's going on in Sudan, that more than 20 million people are starving. So I think it's important to highlight that and also link these, the fact that I mentioned like UAE is good friends with the US and is good friends with Israel. So all of these things, all of the horrors are connected. So I wanted to make sure that people are hearing about that. And kind of wrapping up here, I wanted to just talk about something that in Chris Hedges' latest Substack talked about this, and I think that it's a really important analysis to share with y'all. I'm getting this from his Substack, which you can get for free. And this one's called The Death House. And in it, he basically talks about how, well, I'll just read you a little bit here. I said I wasn't going to read, and here I am. Gaza does not mark the end of the settler colonial project. It marks, I fear, its final phase. Western states, enriched by their own occupations and genocides, are returning to their roots as they face a global climate crisis and the obscene levels of social inequality that they engineer and sustain. And he goes on to talk more about this, but I think what's interesting here is the analysis, first of all, that we don't live in a post-colonial society. That's bullshit. That is propaganda, fake news. And it's used as propaganda to talk about how enlightened we are now, right? Oh, we would never, that what they did in Africa then was so terrible. And so we don't have a post-colonial society. We have, in a lot of ways, as Hedges points out here, a restarting of this colonial horror show that requires the genocides, that requires these extreme violent extractions of resources to fuel whatever the fuck the flavor of the month is. And that this is really going back to its roots. Like I said, this is the core mission of the United States. It's the core mission of the settler regime of Israel. This is who they are. And it will always come back to that, right? Like, you could put lipstick on a pig, right? But it's not like, it's still the same. And this is why I think it's also important to recognize the, Trump or whoever the hell is the figurehead. It's the system itself. And that's not to say that things aren't bad now under Trump. Yes. But it is a systemic problem. And you cannot unfuck this unless you get rid of the system, right? Because it'll always come back. The gravity of capitalism is also the gravity of colonialism, the gravity of imperialism. They will always come back to who they are. And so I wanted to leave y'all with that, not really on a high note, but I wanted to share this with you because this is happening in a few weeks. And I know I've mentioned it here on the show before. I'm hosting a round table on November 18th with a couple of rad human beings, Mohammed Bamie, who is a Palestinian author and professor, and Datheh Razia, who is a Kashmiri author and professor. And we're going to be talking about no state solutions towards decolonized futures from Palestine to Kashmir, actually talking about post-colonialism as a reality, not just a figment of our propagandized imaginations. And so this is going to be happening November 18th at 7 p.m. Eastern. It's a ticketed event via Zoom. And the reason it's ticketed is that I'm trying to raise funds for the doctors that my friend who's a doctor and his colleagues in central Gaza. So all of the money that you pay for the ticket will go to them. Mohammed and Datheh have very graciously agreed to donate their time to have this conversation. And it's really going to be an incredibly important one and a really powerful and vibrant one. So please come be a part of that. Again, that's November 18th at 7 p.m. Eastern, artkillingapathy.simpletix.com. And until next time, y'all, stay as safe as you can be beautiful and be dangerous.
Well, brother, I salute you, though, man. You're one of the few that bring together this tremendous artistic talent and still be in such deep solidarity with oppressed people.
It's an honor to be here because I'll tell you, Lee, you have one of the funniest shows on television, bar none.
It's an enormous pleasure to be here. While I was waiting, I was leafing through your wonderful book.
The same to you. I love your show. Be happy to come back anytime.
Lee, this is one of the great honors of my long career, just to be in the same earth with you.
I'm sure.
We're just so blinded. We have so many blinders on because our society doesn't want us to know things. And so it takes shows like your show, and
it is clearly designed to eradicate.
Hey, good to see you.
Hey, Jill, how are you? Julian, thanks for joining me. Honor to have you, brother.
Consumerism is a theory that people should behave this way to help each other. It's not.
Mr. George Galloway, thank you so much for joining me in these dark times.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you so much, Lee, for having me on. Keep fighting. Ha.